Hello and welcome to Facilities Grid webinar, setting up commissioning tasks to line up with the scope of work. Thank you for joining us. As a reminder, you are in a listen-only mode, so I cannot hear you. If you have any questions during the webinar, please ask them using the GoToWebinar question widget, and I will answer them as many as I can at the end of the webinar. In today's webinar, I will demonstrate how to set up tasks in Facility Grid to line up with the scope of services on your commissioning projects. First, let me introduce myself. My name is Alex Kozinets, and I am a Chief Product Officer at Facility Grid. I am leading up product strategy and customer success and conducting the educational programming and webinars. My background is in mechanical engineering, construction administration, and commissioning, and I've used Facility Grid on various commissioning projects throughout my career. Also, as a former commissioning professional, I hope that I can help Facility Grid to be even more focused on its customers. So now let's get to the webinar you came for. The agenda for today's webinar is as following. We will review a scope of services for a typical commissioning project. I will demonstrate how to select commissioning project type and tasks when you create a project in Facility Grid. We will also go over setting up project-specific commissioning tasks and the associated subtasks. And we'll go over the tracking of the status of commissioning activities. And then we'll switch to the questions and answers session. Again, just as a reminder, you are in a listen-only mode, so I cannot hear you. If you have any questions during the webinar, please ask them using the GoToWebinar question widget, and I will answer as many as I can at the end of the webinar. The first thing that I'd like to do, I'd like to go over a typical RFP for a commissioning project. So I grabbed a sample of an RFP, and I went over that RFP, and I've highlighted a certain tasks or information that is related or defines the scope of the commissioning services on this project. So this project is a new building construction. It's based on the LEED enhanced version 4, and the tasks that are required to be performed by the commissioning agents are as following. So in the design phase on the project, we will be required to develop the commissioning plan, review the owner project requirements and the base of design documents. We will produce a commissioning schedule, perform design reviews, generate a general commissioning spec section. We will also review the individual spec sections of each individual trades. We will also participate in one commissioning meeting during the design phase of the project, and it is going to be a post-bid award meeting. In construction phase of the project, we're going to update the commissioning plan. We're going to outline test plans for each system and piece of equipment to be commissioned. And the RFP states that we need to indicate the manpower requirements for the construction trades. Per the scope of services, we are to assume 26 commissioning meetings during the construction phase of the project. We're going to review equipment submittals, shop drawings. Also, we will review the startup plans and documentation, and then perform periodic site visits and inspection. And the RFP states that somewhere it states here that the site visits are to be conducted before and after the scheduled meetings. We will also witness ductwork and piping pressure tests, and review the testing and balancing of the air side and water side systems. And I believe the final activity of the construction phase would be to update the commissioning plan on the project. Next, we'll be setting up the tasks for the occupancy phase of the project. And during the occupancy phase of the project, we are required to do the following: generate a final commissioning report and produce a systems manual. Okay, so these are the basic tasks. Obviously, there are some other tasks that are outlined in the scope of services, but we're just going to concentrate on this at this point. And so I'm now switching to the facility grid site. And this is my project. So I created this project. And when I created the project, I specified that this is a new building commissioning project. And my tasks are based on the lead enhanced process. Now, as you're familiar with Facility Grid gives you the ability to select different tasks types in Facility Grid. This could be lead enhanced, lead fundamental. They could be also custom. But basically, for this particular project, we are going to go ahead and select the lead enhanced tasks. When we select the lead enhanced tasks, Facility Grid gives us a list of typical tasks related to the lead enhanced process. As you know, you can modify those tasks. You can add tasks by clicking on the plus button right here. You can also delete any of the tasks. So, for example, by this factory testing, if factory testing is not in the scope of this project, you just can click on the X and delete it. You can also edit the name of the task by clicking on this icon and change the phase that this task is associated with, change the name of the task. You can also change the abbreviation of the task. And remember, the abbreviations in Facility Grid for the tasks are created such that everything that is done related to this particular task or subtask will have the abbreviation that is determined by the task. So where it's an issue, whether it's site observation, the abbreviations play a very important role. So what we're going to do is we're going to start with creating the tasks and subtasks with the design phase of this project. And the reason we are doing this right now is that what we want to do is we want to be able to track the status of the commissioning process on the project. And once I go through this process of adding these tasks and subtasks, I will switch to this overview screen and will show you how to track the status of these tasks throughout the process. Facility Grid gives you an ability to track the status of the tasks as you conduct activities related to the tasks. So what we're going to do is go through each activity that is marked in the scope of services. I'm going to move this document to another screen. And as I read again these activities, I'll show you how I document them in Facility Grid. Okay. So the first activity related to the design phase of the project was, I'm switching right now. The first activity was to develop the commissioning plan. So I am in the design phase, and the first activity is the commissioning plan in the design phase, and I know it's a draft plan. And so under the commissioning tasks, I am creating a subtask called draft CX plan. So to create a subtask, I click on the plus button right here, but I've already done it. And so basically, when I click on that, I create the subtask draft commissioning plan. Okay. My next activity is review of the OPR and the BOD. So again, I'm going to go ahead and create a subtask for the OPR review and also for the BOD review. And basically, again, these are placeholders for the tasks or for the activities that I'm going to perform throughout the project. And when I create a subtask, and again, you're probably familiar with that. Under each subtasks, there are several fields that you can populate with information when you're actually performing the task. In this particular case, when you review the base of design documents, you can specify you can document the purpose of this particular task, take any notes, recommendations, and then document any issues or attach documents that are related to this. And the way we're going to keep track of the activities, of status of activities in Facility Grid, is by by changing the status. So when I just created this placeholder for this particular subtask, my status is not started. If I am in process of reviewing a certain document, or if I'm in the process of the site visit, I can change the status to in progress, or once the task is complete, I can change the status to completed. I'm going to continue with creating my subtasks by creating a placeholder for the commissioning schedule. So under the commissioning schedule, I'm going to create a subtask draft CX schedule. And next, I'm going to create a subtask for the design reviews. So in this case, I created one subtask under design reviews. You may choose to create several subtasks if you are required to review several design phases. So for example, 50% construction documents, 95% construction documents, final construction documents. You would do this by creating individual subtask for each individual task. Next, I'm going to create the placeholder for review of the specifications. So as you remember, I had my scope was to generate the general commissioning spec section, and that's my subtask number 1 for the general commissioning spec. And also I have additional tasks for review of the individual spec sections. And what I'm going to do there when I'm actually reviewing it, I am going to go ahead and attach the document in this to this subtask. And then if I have any comments, I am going to document as issues, and those issues would be related to this specific subtask, which is in this case would be commissioning spec or CX spec-2, and it's related to this specific subtask. Once I'm done that, I remember that I have to conduct one commissioning meeting during the design phase of the project, and I'm going to go ahead and create a subtask for the post-bid award meeting. So now once I set this up, I know that these are my tasks related to the design phase of the project. And next, I'm going to move to the construction phase of the project. Now, depending on when you are setting up these tasks in Facility Grid, you may choose to document assets in Facility Grid right away, because once you set up the tasks that could be associated with the assets, you can link them to those assets. And so before I go to the construction phase tasks, I'm going to go to the assets and start with equipment types. On the equipment types, I created two samples of the types. One is for the air handling unit, and one is for the air handling for the exhaust fan. And under the equipment, I've created 4 instances of the air handling units and 4 instances of the exhaust fans. Under inner types, I create checklists and I create FPTs. And as part of this webinar, I'm not going to go over how to create this. However, the FPTs are documented in the FPT section of the equipment types, and the checklists are documented in the checklist types. Once I create individual instances of that equipment and link those instances to the associated types, Facility Grid will automatically create the individual checklists and individual FPTs for each instance of equipment. So if I have 4 air handling units and 6 fans, I now have 4 checklists for the air handling units and 4 checklists, and 4 FPTs for the air handling units. So if I switch to the tests tab of the software, I can see my checklists, as I mentioned to you, for the air handling units are in the status incomplete, and the checklists for the exhaust fans are with the draft status. Why it's important is when we track status of the activities related to the checklists and the FPTs, the activities are being tracked based on this status of the checklists. And there are 2 different activities related to checklists and FPTs. First activity is to generate the checklists and FPTs, and the second one is to complete. To generate the activity, to generate the checklist is tracked based on the fact that the status either draft or incomplete. When you have a checklist or an FPT with the status draft, it means that this is a placeholder for this particular test, but the test has not been created yet, meaning it is not visible to the contractors or to anyone else who views these documents. And this is important. And once I switch to the overview page of the document of the software, I will demonstrate to you how this is shown on that page. I'm going to go back to the my tasks, and again, I'm in the construction phase of the project, and I know that I have to review equipment submittals. In this case, I've just created 2 placeholders for equipment types, exhaust fan and the air handling unit. So I'm going to go ahead and create these 2 subtasks for equipment for the AHU submittal and the exhaust fan submittal. I'm also going to go ahead and create my site observation report placeholders. I know that I'm supposed to have 26 commissioning meetings, and therefore I'll have 26 commissioning site preservation reports. And so I went ahead and I created 26 SORs. And as you can see, again, the status of these reports is not started, meaning, again, this is just a placeholder. For the equipment startup documents, I went ahead and I created 2 subtasks for the AHU startup and exhaust fan startup. The checklists and FPTs are created automatically, the tasks related to them, that is. Test and balance, I know I have to conduct review of the air side and water side testing and balancing. My FPTs, again, they've been created, the tasks have been created automatically. I have a placeholder for review of my shop drawings, MEP shop drawings. I have placeholders for the ductwork and piping pressure tests. I've added a task for the commissioning plan, and there is an associated subtask for the commissioning plan. And again, what I'm going to do here, I'm going to update my draft commissioning plan that I started in the design phase of the project, and then I will save the final commissioning plan under this subtask. I'll create a placeholder for the schedule. Again, as I mentioned, I have 26 meetings that I'm supposed to conduct, and I've created placeholders for the meetings. And again, the status of the meetings are not started yet. I've created a placeholder for the O&M training and the draft commissioning report. So I know that at the end of the construction phase, my deliverable is a draft commissioning report. And again, here's the placeholder for this activity. And then when I switch to the occupancy phase of the project, if you remember, I was supposed to deliver the final commissioning report, and I've created a placeholder for that. And also, I was supposed to deliver a systems manual. So now, as you can see, I have pretty much outlined every single task that is related to the scope of services on my project. And now I'm ready to look at the overview page of the project to see the activities. So when I switch to the overview page, every single activity that I wished or I specified to be tracked, I can now see on this page. Now, as a side note, if you're familiar with the this option to configure this, to configure the overview activity, is done in the reporting section of the settings. So basically, you switch to the settings, you go to the reporting section, and select for the percent completion of CS tasks to be shown. So basically, you click or unclick this box. So once it's done, when you look at the overview page of your project, you can now see your activities. And let's review what we see. So basically, in the design phase of the project, we know that we're supposed to review the OPR requirements, and we haven't done that task yet. So we've done 0 of 1, base of design, draft commissioning plan, and so on and so forth. You can see here where we were supposed to review 5 spec sections, and we reviewed 0 out of 5. And as I go through every single task that we are following here, we can see that the only thing that has been completed so far is generation of the checklists and the FPTs. As you remember, the checklists and FPTs for the air handling units have been marked as not started, meaning that they have been created and the checklists and FPTs for the exhaust fans have been marked as draft. So you can see that for the FPT generation and checklist generation, I'm showing 4 out of 10. So when anyone looks at these statistics, they can clearly see that you're supposed to generate 10, and you've only generated 4. How is this information useful? It can be used in many different ways. First of all, this is a great process status tracking tool. Basically, anyone logging into your project can see exactly where the project is at. It also allows you to keep track of the activities and to understand of where you are on the project. So, for example, if your scope was to conduct 26 meetings and you've already conducted 26 meetings and the client wants you to conduct another one, there's statistics available to you on demand, and you can always use the statistics to maybe request an additional services from your client. And also, I know some of our clients use the statistics to link them to the billing cycle. So, for example, if they bill the client on completion of certain tasks, they can use this information to augment their bills. So, for example, if you're billing your client at completion of generating the checklist and FPTs, you can clearly point out this information or get to this information for the FPT generation. So once the 10 out of 10 FPTs are generated, you can submit this information along with the bills. Okay, this completes the webinar information session, and I would like to switch now to the questions. So please let me know if you have any questions, and the questions can be documented in the questionnaire portion of the webinar. Okay, I can see there is one question, and the question is again how to activate the percent completion. How to activate the percent completion statistics. This question probably was asked before I showed it, but basically in the settings, you go to reporting, and in the reporting field, you click on the show percent complete of the commissioning tasks by clicking or unclicking this box. Next question is how to set up a meeting schedule in the construction phase. So again, on the construction phase of the project, I'm not 100% understanding the question, but the schedule, if you had a project schedule, or the schedule of the meetings, those could be set up under the schedule task. And so basically under this task, you can create a subtask, which would be called meetings, for example. And under this subtask, you can document the schedule of the meetings, of when those meetings are to be held. I do not see any other questions, and I appreciate your time. Thank you very much, and hopefully you will join me at the next webinar. Thank you.